There are reportedly already some backstage issues with Mercedes Moné's recent comments about a possible future return to WWE prior to her debut of All Elite Wrestling this week at Big Business. Plenty of details as well on her contract that she signed with All Elite Wrestling. Speaking of Big Business, we have the ratings for this Wednesday's episode on TBS, which have now been updated thanks to new information and new data being released. Was there a backstage incident with CM Punk and Booker T at NXT this week, or was the WWE Hall of Famer just working the internet like he's done before? An update on Warner Bros. Discovery's conversations with AEW over an extension to their television deal with the network. What about The Rock and his future after WrestleMania? Is he going to be wrestling more matches this year? We'll let you know details on that. Plus, WWE reportedly could be making some changes to future premium live events. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's start off talking about Mercedes Moné and some possible heat already on the newly signed AEW wrestler, thanks to some recent comments she made about a future WWE return. Now, this is very interesting stuff because ahead of her official AEW debut, Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks, commented that she anticipated a WWE return in the future. Now, the comments were made during an appearance on the Kick Rocks podcast, with Moné being quoted as saying, quote, "I know I'm going to be back there one day, okay, so it's not over," end quote. Now, in the current issue of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer revealed the negative reaction to Mercedes Moné's comments. The line was edited out of the full podcast, but it was still present in a separate clip that was posted. According to Meltzer, the comments from Mercedes Moné rubbed people backstage up the wrong way, with it being said, quote, "Regarding WWE, she said, quote, I know I'm going to be back there one day. Like I said, I have a lot of unfinished business in a lot of places," end quote. Boy, did this rub a lot of people the wrong way. Time will tell, and quite frankly, she should always have it in her mind that the possibility of going to WWE, but saying it so days before she's about to start in AEW wouldn't be the right time to politically say that. There is a reality that some people consider AEW as the place they want to be, and some see it as the place to make money until getting the call to come back. The latter group has, in general, been more of a detriment to the company. In her case, she negotiated with both sides. WWE didn't give her the money she wanted, and AEW did. Could you imagine Jade Cargill or Cody Rhodes right before her or his WWE debut saying they know that one day go back to AEW, and if they did, how do you think WWE would react? In time, this will play out as it does, but the people who are skeptical are now more skeptical. In the end, if she's a long-term valuable asset to the company, nobody will remember this statement. And if not, everyone will remember this statement. So what do you think of what Meltzer is saying there? And what did you think of those comments made by Mercedes Moné? Do you agree with people that are now even more skeptical of her intentions towards AEW? And do you think people within AEW are right to feel a bit frustrated and annoyed by her saying that she's going to one day go back to WWE just days before she made her debut with All Elite Wrestling? Let me know your thoughts about that as well. Now, when it comes to Moné and her contract with All Elite Wrestling, more has come out regarding Mercedes Moné signing with AEW, including how she may now be the highest paid woman in professional wrestling. Now, this week on AEW Dynamite Big Business, Mercedes Moné made her stunning debut. Her arrival was something that was heavily teased by the company, and most fans came into the show with the firm belief that she would be appearing. In the end, fans at the TD Garden were not disappointed as the former Sasha Banks made her return after having to spend time on the sidelines dealing with an ankle injury. Now, per Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, more has come out about AEW signing Mercedes. To begin, it said that the 32-year-old was negotiating with WWE in both 2022 and 2023, wanting more money than they were prepared to agree to. It's mentioned that Tony Khan's offer was very substantial, although less than the $5 million that some have been suggesting on social media. Meltzer said, quote, "Venado had negotiated with WWE in late 2022 and again in late 2023, and both times from the WWE side, she was wanting more money than they were offering, with reports that she was seeking Becky Lynch level money. While it's not clear what Khan's offer was, those with knowledge of the offer said it was very substantial, obviously higher than WWE, but considerably lower than the $5 million per year figure going around, end quote. Now, despite the offer being less than the $5 million figure that was circulated, Meltzer notes that one female WWE talent is of the belief that Mercedes' contract is enough to make her the highest paid woman in the history of professional wrestling. Quote, one WWE woman star noted to us that they were hearing that the number was enough to make her the highest paid woman in professional wrestling, and that they were thrilled at AEW for making the offer and happy for her to have accepted it, because in the long run it means a better market for the top women wrestlers, noting, quote, I think it sets a standard that women should be paid too. The women do great numbers and have huge social followings, end quote, and also said that it was a huge deal for women in the industry who are paid a lot less than men. And Mercedes' arrival completes the set of 3 major signings for AEW in recent weeks. In November, it was announced that Will Ospreay would be joining All Elite Wrestling upon the expiry of his New Japan Pro Wrestling contract, and the Brit made his first appearance as a full-time member of the roster prior to AEW Revolution. Then, the Rainmaker Kazuchika Okada debuted for the company the week following the most recent pay-per-view, and the CEO followed suit this past Wednesday. On this, Meltzer states that Tony Khan offered more money than WWE on all 3 of these occasions, with the opposition seemingly relying on the grandeur of WrestleMania to lure talent in. Quote, in all 3 cases it was known that Khan offered more money than WWE, and WWE officials who seemingly expected the lure of WWE and WrestleMania being enough of a deciding factor ended up with it being not the case. Now, of course, Mone is now a big asset for AEW, but what do you think of the reports she could be the highest paid female ever in professional wrestling? Is she worth it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, let's talk about the ratings for AEW Big Business this past Wednesday. This is really interesting stuff, actually, because I wanted to wait a little while before reporting this because the numbers have already changed. Yes. Now, with Mercedes Moné's arrival at Dynamite Big Business, widely anticipated by fans who follow on social media, Tony Khan chose not to announce Mone for the show officially, instead choosing an Easter egg style of promotion that mirrored CM Punk's return to wrestling on the first dance debut episode of AEW Rampage in 2021. Now, Mone's debut also opened the show just like CM Punk's did, but while those tactics may have helped fill the TD Garden with a raucous crowd in Mone's hometown of Boston, Massachusetts, they also resulted in what can only be seen as a ratings disappointment. Now, according to WrestleNomics, Big Business averaged a total viewership of 798,000 viewers. Now, this number is different than what was reported last night, and there is a reason for that. We'll get into that in just a second. Now, this number is up 2% from last week. It also scored a 0.27 rating in the 18-49 demographic. That is actually in line with last week. Now, initially, the number that was reported was 801,000 viewers. Now, why has that changed, you'll ask? Well, this is because there was a Nielsen error that didn't include the 6-minute overrun in the calculation, so the overall for the average of the show was actually slightly lower for total viewership, going down from 801,000 viewers to 798,000 viewers. So it's actually even more of a disappointment than was reported yesterday. The 18-49 number actually remains the same. When it comes to the quarter-hour ratings, these come courtesy of WrestleNomics. Shout out to them, and be sure to subscribe to their Patreon service. Now, as you can see right there, Mercedes Moné opening the show did do strongly, with 1 million viewers total tuning in, and also 423,000 actually falling into the 18-49 demographic, which is just a little bit above what they've been doing in recent weeks. Now, as is kind of the case for Dynamite recently, the show continued to decline from them. I suppose most surprisingly, you can see there, between 8:45 and 9 o'clock, really the top of the second hour, what you can see is this huge drop from 815,000 total viewers to 737,000 total viewers. And actually in that segment was meant to be a pretty strong segment with the brand new Elite, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson of the Young Bucks, and Kazuchika Okada facing off against Death Triangle and Eddie Kingston, and only 737,000 viewers tuning in. In addition to that, the main event was really below the average of what we've seen over the last 90-day trend, with only 627,000 viewers tuning in for the main event of Willow Nightingale versus Riho. Now, we did have the overrun, which, as I mentioned, wasn't actually officially included in yesterday's numbers. It's now included, and it did actually creep back up to over 700,000 for that overrun. But what are your thoughts on these numbers? How much of a big disappointment do you think this will be to Tony Khan and AEW? And do you think we'll see in the next couple of weeks ratings start to bounce back up now that all of these people are signed? Or has the damage been done done to AEW, and is this just kind of the number that Dynamite is going to continue to do, around 800,000? Let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comment section below. Now, this is really interesting, this story regarding CM Punk and Booker T. Now, an update has emerged on Booker T saying that he and CM Punk almost got into it off-screen at WWE NXT this week. Now, CM Punk, as we mentioned, was present at the March 12 NXT taping, and 2 days later, Booker T said the following on his podcast. He said, quote, "I saw Punk." He said, "We'll talk about that off the air. I almost had like a little run-in with CM Punk. The internet might want to pick that up. Me and CM Punk almost got into it at NXT this week. We'll talk about it later. I don't want to put it out there because they're going to pick it up and run with it. But yeah, I'll talk to you about that off the air." Now, again, the quote really doesn't do it the full context. If you watch the clip, Booker T is very much kind of sort of joking. But still, on the surface, and even after seeing the clip, some people did believe that Booker T was recalling a legitimate situation. But it would appear that's not the case. Now, many people pointed out that there were responses from Booker T's podcast to people replying to the video where he made the comment about CM Punk, and it seemed to insinuate that it was a work, basically meaning Booker T was just making up and getting people talking. Fightful reported that they hadn't heard of such a thing happening, and one source said it was just Booker being Booker and probably trying to create a headline. He did something very similar with Corey Graves, if you recall, back in 2018, 2019, and he said, "Corey Graves is the reason why I'm off WWE commentary," and it turned into a thing, whereas in reality it was Booker T just working. Well, there's plenty more details in this, and it comes courtesy of Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select. Now, CM Punk, as I mentioned, was backstage at this week's NXT. That is true, as previously reported. He kept a lower profile than his previous visits to the developmental brand, but earlier this week, Booker T shared a story on his podcast claiming that he and Punk had almost gotten into it backstage at the taping. Now, speaking to sources within NXT, Fightful's Corey Brennan was told there was a feeling of skepticism regarding Booker's comments, with no sources being aware of a confrontation prior to his podcast. One source pointed out that Punk has not had any issues backstage since his return last year, and expressed surprise that Booker would make such a claim without offering more context. Security was also not made aware of any such confrontation, with no such talk of an incident. In addition, NXT sources told Fightful Sean Ross Sapp that CM Punk has actually been very helpful and open to lending a hand anytime he's been backstage at NXT since his return to WWE last year. Punk was said to be in good spirits at the taping and largely kept to himself outside of speaking with Shawn Michaels and Matt Bloom and a few members of the NXT roster. One talent Fightful spoke with flat out denied the incident taking place, pointing out that Booker T's previous claims of heat between he and Corey Graves that turned out to be false as well. There was a sense of frustration from those Fightful spoke to that Booker would make such a claim about Punk, given Punk's history with backstage altercations, but again, it would appear that the whole thing was just completely fabricated and Booker T being a worker. So there you go. Now, what about AEW's talks with Warner Bros. Discovery, their media rights negotiations, their media rights talks? Well, an update has emerged on AEW television negotiations, with talks between the promotion and Warner Bros. Discovery set to commence soon. Warner Bros. Discovery currently owns US television rights for all of AEW's weekly television programs, with Dynamite airing on TBS and both Rampage and Collision being shown on TNT. AEW currently has a strong partnership with several networks owned by Warner Bros. Discovery. Per Dave Meltzer in the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Warner Bros. Discovery has entered, quote, serious negotiations with the NBA about a new television package. Now, noting that AEW and WBD will begin negotiations after an NBA deal is completed. Meltzer wrote the following, quote, "The NBA and WBD have begun serious negotiations for a new TV package. Sports Business Journal claims sources say the sides are about 75% close to an agreement. Most believe that serious WBD and AEW negotiations will take place after the NBA deal, the higher priority deal, is completed." Now, Warner Bros. Discovery owned networks have always been the home for AEW TV shows, with Dynamite originally premiering on TNT in 2019 before moving to TBS in January 2022. Rampage was introduced on TNT back in August of 2021 before Collision premiered on the same network in June of last year. Now, of course, AEW, as I mentioned, has introduced some major stars in recent weeks, with Will Ospreay, Kazuchika Okada joining the company full-time, Mercedes Mone making her debut on Dynamite Big Business this week as well. So, what are your thoughts when it comes to the television rights negotiations with Warner Bros. Discovery? Do you think AEW is going to stay on those networks, going to get an improved deal, given that all WWE options are off the table now? Let me know your thoughts about that as well. Now, The Rock. People are assuming that The Rock isn't just going to wrestle at WrestleMania this year. He could have more matches on his schedule. Now, The Rock will be in action for the first time in 2024 at WrestleMania 40, with a second match speculated for later in the year. As previously reported, there was a belief that his match in April 2024 would be followed up by a match in May of 2024 in Saudi Arabia. It now appears that his movie schedule is going to impact any such plans, with Dave Meltzer writing in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that, quote, The Rock is filming The Smashing Machine, a movie where he plays former MMA star Mark Kerr, based on a documentary of the same name. Based on the filming schedule, he could not do any pay-per-view matches until SummerSlam, and even that would be difficult because he'd have to train for the match while on set. While the belief in the company is that this is not his last match, there is no date for another match, and it depends on his movie schedule, although with the nature of his WWE contract, he could move dates around for the WWE pay-per-view show. Johnson starts filming The Smashing Machine on May 1st. This rules him out of a May Saudi Arabia show and makes SummerSlam tough depending on the schedule. It could mean the earliest he could do another match would be the second Saudi Arabia show, and I could see him waiting for WrestleMania next year. So The Rock possibly isn't going to be done wrestling after WrestleMania this year, but he could be done wrestling in 2024. He might have to wait until 2025. Finally, speaking of premium live events, we could be seeing some changes to them in the future. Now, WWE may be changing an aspect of its premium live event presentation to allow live, high-energy, free-flowing discussion. The kickoff shows that take place before PLEs have typically been a method of attracting audiences to the event itself, with recaps and roundtable discussions allowing, more people to get, a better feel of the storylines going into the shows, as well as the odd match here and there as well. According to PW Insider, changes are potentially coming to the format, with Mike Johnson stating, quote, We are also told that you can probably expect as we get deeper into the year for some changes to the kickoff show formats. I'm told they want to look at ESPN's College Game Day as something of a blueprint, to have more of a live, high-energy, free-flowing discussion about the big shows that are taking place later that day and some of the big matches. They're working on some format changes. Now, the changes would come under the tenure of Lee Fitting, who joined WWE in January of this year, replacing Kevin Dunn. Fitting serves as WWE head of media and production and worked for ESPN for more than 25 years before being let go in August of 2023. His job title with ESPN was Senior Vice President of Production, where he oversaw production for Monday Night Football, College Game Day, the College Football Playoff, and more. Fitting's influence has seen changes to the presentation of Raw and SmackDown, including making them feel more like a sports show. So we could be seeing more changes coming in the near future. But there you go, guys. It's the latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.